Hey, Discernment listeners, 90 Day Fiancé, let's watch. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. Since this is a psychology YouTube channel, we occasionally get into triggering material, so take care of yourself, talk with your therapist, or turn off the video if you sense that a topic is going to cause distress, and take care of yourself, so let's watch.
I think therapy made me realize that I put everybody else before myself. And I always want to help everyone else and do everything for them, and I need to do that for myself.
So another thing about Kalani, and that's great that she knows that about herself, is that there's two things. One is that one of the ways we will sabotage ourselves is to do stuff like what Kalani is doing, because there's a side. Think of it as a possibility of two different sides of herself. One side is like, hey, what about me? What about me? And the other side is like, you don't deserve it. You don't deserve it. You don't deserve it. Right. And so finally, when there's enough pressure of just like, no, I deserve it, then what this side will do is say, okay, go ahead, do what you want. It's sort of like when you're parenting your kids, and I'm trying to think of a situation that wouldn't be dangerous. Like you have a teenager that has a part-time job and has some money and really wants to buy this really expensive necklace for his girlfriend or something. And you're thinking as a parent, that's not a great use of their money. And you're thinking you don't even know if you'll be with this girl for very long, because it doesn't typically happen for very long. And so you tell your teenage boy, you say, well, I don't think that's a good use of your money. You worked really hard for that $500 or $1,000. And I think if you want to express your love for your girlfriend, then, there are other ways you could do it. Plus, if you're trying to buy her love, I don't know if you say that kind of stuff because that could insult him, but you just say, I just think that's really not a good, you only have $1,000, and you never know, you might even be broken up in the not too distant future, and she might not give it back to you. And plus, even if she does, you can't resell it for these, you resell those things at like 1/10 the price. And then he's just like, get off my back, I'm going to do it. You're always trying to control my money. And you say, okay, go for it. And you're not hoping that your kid will fail and fall flat on his face, but you're thinking it's likely. I'm given the scenario that I sort of laid out. And you think, well, natural consequences. When I was in my early career, a phrase I was saying very often, a very common phrase that was being bandied about was natural consequences. Because when you're trying to parent a teenager and they don't want to obey, there's not a lot you can do. And so what you rely on is, well, natural consequences will teach them a lesson. And it's a pretty good philosophy to follow, particularly when you have nothing else that you can do about it. So you think, oh, natural consequence. So you're thinking, well, when he does this, and in a month when they're broken up, and he feels that sting of, oh, I wasted all that money on that, then he'll learn and he won't do it again in the future, right? So with the two sides of Kalani hypothesizing, it's like, I want, and she does deserve to get what she wants, but there's not a lot of maturity about the plan to get what I want. And then this side is like, you don't deserve it, you don't deserve it. So this side is definitely bad. This side is a bad thing. There's really nothing good about this. There's good and bad sides to one's id or one's needs, right? Because we don't always get everything that we want. But this side is bad. So no. And then this side's like, okay, I'm breaking free. And then this side says, go for it. Because this side, contrary to the parent example, this is a malevolent force that's saying, you're going to sabotage yourself, but I'm not going to tell you. And so she ends up doing this, and either it goes horribly wrong, because what's the chances that this guy is like a total saint? Who knows? Or she ends up being so shameful about what she has done because she reflects later of just like, I can't believe I cheated. Who knows? Maybe she could even get pregnant again, or have a disease from this other guy, or whatever. Just some sort of consequence. Or he breaks her heart. That wouldn't be unusual. And so when that happens, and this side is just like, so you retract, right? This side's like, oh, what did I do? And then this side is like, see, you're an idiot. You need to listen to this internalized voice from somewhere else that you're an idiot and you can never have what you want. Your needs are always suspect. And that'll lock in that pattern of denying one's needs and believing yourself and having rights, further into the future. So that's another risk of what's happening that I would be concerned about if I were in a situation. The other thing is that I learned that there are 3 stages to assertiveness. There's the first stage, which is the doormat phase, where you don't assert anything, you don't believe you deserve anything. Then there's the third and final phase, which is a phase in which you're asserting yourself, you know your needs, and you are considering the bigger picture and other people's feelings. But you're very in connection with your own needs. So that's where you want to be. Being assertive isn't just telling everyone what you want. Being assertive is knowing what you want, being careful about telling other people what you want, given the circumstance, being thoughtful about it, being fair about it, while also taking into consideration the bigger picture, other goals that you have in your life, other circumstances, and including other people's feelings. Okay, but sometimes, even if someone else doesn't want something that you want, you say, well, after thinking about this, I'm still going to do this, even though that other person doesn't want me to do that, because overall, I've thought about it in a differentiated way, I deserve it. Other times you might think, well, I really want this, but overall, it's not a good idea that I assert that. So I'm not going to, it's a reflective ability. That's the final stage. The middle, so the first stage is doormat. The third phase is that. The middle phase, the transition phase, is a phase in which commonly I will see people be one-sidedly asserting what they want, the way a child would. I want this regardless of consequences, regardless of circumstance, regardless of how other people feel, regardless of my own feelings about this assertion. I want, and I will get, and I will get, and I will get. And they will do stuff like this, or they will be very off-putting to other people, very just like, I don't care what you think. And the thing is, it's a necessary phase. It's better than doormat, in my opinion, typically. But without going through phase 2, you'll never get to phase 3, because you have to. It's why the terrible twos exist. It's because there's a point in life when we should be allowed to be able to assert ourselves in developmentally appropriate ways, so that we can learn, oh, I do deserve to assert myself. I do have rights. I do have needs that deserve to be voiced and in the world. When you go through that selfish, childish, assertive phase, you graduate to the third phase where you know that you deserve things, and you can now begin to take into consideration other people's feelings in the broader context. So there's this middle phase of a lot of selfishness. The problem, though, is without guidance, they will know that they're being selfish, or they'll be labeled as selfish, or they'll self-label as selfish, and they'll go back to doormat phase, and they'll never get to phase 3. So there's a lot of care that needs to be taken when people emerge out of that first phase. Some of you might be perpetually vacillating between phase 1 and phase 2 and never getting to phase 3, because phase 1 is sort of like safe and easy, because you just let everyone else do what they want you to do or to you. But occasionally you can't take it anymore. You go to phase 2 and you just start saying no, and you start drawing boundaries. But they're immature, which is fine. That's a necessary step. And they're not very well thought out, and they're not very differentiated, and there can be consequences to you in your life. To a 2-year-old that has those kind of consequences, it's not the end of the world, because the child is just asserting that they want a cookie instead of a carrot. But to a 30-year-old person, you're asserting that you deserve to have sex with another person while you're still married. There's much bigger consequences, right? So if this phase is done, like when I work with clients, I'll work with their whole system, or I'll at least tell them to work their whole system. So like with a couple, I'll notice one person is going into phase 2, and I'll tell them all this stuff, and I'll tell their partner, so that, you want your partner to be phase 3, and you don't want your partner to be a doormat. And so you're going to have to put up with phase 2, which means that you're probably going to be incurring a lot of unfairness from your partner as they step into a place of asserting themselves, which is necessary for human life and happiness and a marriage. But it's going to be kind of one-sided for a while. It's not always like completely out of hand, or typically it's not. But when I tell them that and I convince them of that, then the partner's like, oh, okay, it's just temporary. That my partner is being very unfair. But I'd rather have that than have them be a doormat and inaccessible. So at least they're telling me what they want. And there's a fair amount of system change too, because typically doormats will not choose, a lot of times doormats will choose people that assert themselves a lot anyway. And so as the doormat starts to assert themselves, this person isn't used to that. They're not comfortable with that. They're just like, hey, unconsciously, I like it when you're a doormat. Anyway, so that's another risk to what's happening with Kalani.
I did my best and focus on my marriage, but having slept with Dallas kind of opened my eyes to a different world. There's effort there that there's never been with Asuelu.
And the other thing is, and maybe Dallas is great. I can't know. I hope that he is. But it's also likely that Asuelu put a lot of effort into a relationship at the beginning of their relationship as well. He moved to another country. The observation that in the beginning of a relationship, you have two people that are putting a lot of effort into the relationship and are being very kind and very open and very flexible is possibly just a product of the beginning of a relationship, new relationship energy, as the polyamorous people call it, and not something that you can bank on, not something that you should say, oh, therefore I can absolutely invest all my energy into this new person. Just take it slow and see if that behavior persists. That's what I would advise her to do. If in 3 years Dallas is still relatively that way, then you can kind of know that it's here to stay, but you don't know anything at this point. Having said all that, she absolutely deserves to be treated better. She absolutely deserves someone to be nice and flexible and accommodating and listen to her. And I think she talked about how they had actual conversations, this kind of thing. She absolutely deserves that, and there's nothing pathological or strange about that. It's a good thing that she is feeling that, and that she is like, hey, this is nice.
Don't make me tell Liz, okay? You need to tone it down a notch.
I'm in this green kind of elf hat. If I'm expected to be serious, I'm already in trouble. Which, by the way, irritates Liz. When I'm performing, she hates it. But I know that. That's why I do it.
Okay, I know that I've seen that scene, and I swear I've reacted to it, which now makes me 90% sure that everything I just said, I've already said. So I apologize for yammering again about the same thing if that's already happened. I did a lot to try to, I thought I had landed where I had stopped reacting anyway. But I will repeat that I'm pretty sure I already said this in a video, but Ed is saying that there's so many weird things about this. I've already said. One, I think it's kind of new that he considers himself to be the funny guy. It seems maybe shenanigansy. I don't know. But I don't think anyone, I think he thinks of himself as like this super funny person, but I would not put him in that camp. I'm sure there have been occasional things that he's said that I thought might be charmingly dad jokey of some sort. I'm sure that's happened, but I don't think of him as like this incredibly entertaining. I think a lot of the jokes he makes, people laugh out of courtesy, not out of like legitimate. And there's nothing wrong with that. There are plenty of jokes I've made that people make courtesy laughs around. Just making conversation to some extent. There's a line, but it's not a crime. But so there's that. But then he says, she doesn't like it when I perform. Liz doesn't like it when I perform. And I wonder what that is about. Is it just him not being super aware, or some people just like to be goofy? I'm sure there have been times when I've annoyed my wife by being overly talkative with a cashier at the Home Depot or something. I don't know if I've annoyed her, but maybe a little bit. I feel like in my older age, particularly when I'm in a good mood, it just feels good to kind of connect briefly, with people. I don't usually, if I have a line behind me, I never do that because I hate it when people like chit chat and I'm just like, I'm trying to get out of here. Like, let's move it along. But if it's not a situation like that, or if it's just brief, anyway, part of it is because up until kind of recently, I was so utterly shy that I would never say anything. People would try to engage me. I'm like, put me with people I know and love. I'm not shy, but in public with people I don't know, I feel like I don't know how to say things quick enough, or I don't know. So the fact that I feel able to do that, it just feels like, hey, I'm doing it. I'm socializing with randos. Anyway, so is it that, or is that he actually is being narcissistic and is flirting in a way to bolster his self-esteem and is disregarding his relationship? We could imagine that being the case as well. All right, well, I want to do a little announcement in that when I heart your comment on YouTube, when you comment, and there's a little heart button, I always feel a little funny about that because heart, feels kind of intimate or lovey or invasive. Like, it doesn't allow me just to say gotcha or dig it. I have one option. I can hit the thumbs up button, but you won't know it was from me. You just know that someone. So if you want it to know it's from me, I gotta heart it. And I just want you to know that when I heart it, that can mean anything from I heart it to I read it. Because sometimes some people will say things and I'll be like, yeah, okay. I don't know if I'm fully behind what you're saying, but I hear you and I respect that. So heart. But heart, you know what I mean? I just wanted to be clear about that. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.